Welcome, everybody. Just a couple people that are still getting in. Welcome to this week's Grow, where we gather to recharge, organize, and work here as members of MWEG. We're so glad that you're joining us this week as we are going to talk about making the most out of our CTAs or calls to action. You will see us use the acronym for that often here in MWEG, and we just wanted to make sure that people knew what a call to action was and how they could access those and how they could make it the most effective when communicating with their reps. So this week we have Christy Carter-Bake, who is our Director of Advocacy, and we have Emily Wickham, who is our Advocacy Administrator for a little bit longer, like a couple more days, right, Emily? Here at MWEG. So we're so glad that both of them are joining us, and they're going to explain all the things related to CTAs. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks everyone for joining us again. Emily and I have been frequent flyers the last few weeks here on the Grows, but we're excited to come talk to you more about our calls to action. This is one of the most used tools that we provide our members for engaging with their legislators directly, and it can have some really great outcomes, and once you learn how to do it, it can be pretty intuitive. But for people who haven't done it before or who haven't done it very much, it can maybe be kind of tricky. And so we wanted to walk everyone through it. And even if you have done a bunch of CTAs before, there might be some functionality that you didn't know about in our CTA software, or we also have some strategies for drafting persuasive emails and how to do phone calls through our software as well. So there are a lot of options, there's a lot of functionality, and we wanted to just jump in and show you more about it. So more generally, we publish our CTAs as a way for our members and for the public. It's not restricted to just MWEG members, and in fact, there's nothing in the letters that get signed that indicates it's from MWEG or that there's any association with MWEG. So really anyone at all can use our CTA tool to contact their elected officials. And we set up CTAs for various topics that we have been working on or following or that we're specifically interested in. And then we also have a blank one we'll talk more about later, where you can use it to contact your officials on really anything. But they're just a good, easy way to get in touch with the people who are making decisions about some of the topics that are of most interest to us and to you, our members. So our publishing schedule for CTAs might seem a little bit erratic, but it is responsive to what's happening in either federal or state legislative bodies. So for federal issues, we can publish them anytime during the year. We typically put our advocacy content out on Thursdays. So whether that's a CTA or sometimes we'll do library pieces or more educational content around issues we're working on the advocacy side, whatever that is, including CTAs, that usually comes out on Thursdays. And the frequency of federal CTAs just depends on what we need and what's going on. So this summer we had quite a few. If you were following along with us, we had several calls to action related to the reconciliation package, and then another one related to rescissions. So we had 3 or 4 there in a very short amount of time. But Congress is on recess right now, and so we haven't had one recently. We also might do targeted ones, so you might get an invitation to do one emailed directly to you outside of our normal channels if your legislator is someone we want to get in contact with specifically on an issue or to thank them. So we'll talk about where to find our CTAs in a little bit. But we also do state level CTAs for certain states. We're not in all states. We do a lot of work, as most of you know, in Utah, Idaho, Arizona, Nevada, and a little bit in Texas. And then we could theoretically do one-off calls to action for state issues in other states, but typically we focus on those where we have built out state teams, and we usually do them during state legislative sessions, which are usually at the first of the year. Some of them are longer than others, and some of them have special sessions. So, for example, we actually have a CT up in Texas right now for their special session on redistricting. Um, we don't have a regular publishing schedule for state CTAs. They tend to move a lot faster than federal ones do, so we just try and get them up as quickly as we can. And that also means that we need people to respond to them much more quickly because state legislation just moves much faster than federal legislation does. So this is talking about where we can find our CTAs if you saw one come through and you didn't respond to it and you need to track it down, or if you're looking for something specific. Here are some ways to find our CTAs. These mostly apply to federal CTAs. State CTAs tend to be posted just in our state spaces on Central. Sometimes they'll be out on Instagram, and you can find them the same way on your state Instagram page as you would on the general Instagram page. But mostly for what I'm talking about finding CTAs, I'm meaning federal CTAs, which are up longer and posted it in more places. So on Instagram, you would go to the link in bio, which we've highlighted here. It's the little link symbol. You can see it says like our website address and for more. And when you click on it, the second picture below there will show you some links. There are a few links we have linked there in Instagram right now. I just took a screenshot today. But you can see two of them are calls to action. One is on PEP4 and one is on the Building Civic Bridges Act. And those are our two CTAs that are active right now on the federal level. You can also find it in Central. This is a screenshot from my phone, so it will look a little bit different if you're looking at it on a laptop or other computer, but you want to make sure that you are under spaces. So I've got the arrow pointing to the spaces button. You would click on the spaces button, or on your computer screen, it would be on the left side. And then you would just scroll down. I had to scroll down a little bit. I have quite a few things up. Everyone's Central menu is going to look a little bit different depending on what groups you've joined. But if you scroll down under advocacy areas, our very top option there is calls to action. So you can click on there and it will take you to all of our active calls to action, and they're all linked there in Central. So Central's a really great and easy place to be able to view all of our calls to action. You can also go to MWEG's website. On the home page, you would click on the link for Get Involved, and then it's going to show you a screen like this after you scroll down a little bit. And then you can see all of our advocacy areas, and you can click on each one, and if there's an active CTA in that advocacy area, it will then be linked after you click on the button for the advocacy area. So right now we have, for example, a PEPFAR CTA. That one's going to be linked under Family Health and Wellbeing. If you click on that, it will take you to the Family Health and Wellbeing page, and one of the first things on that page will be the CTA. So other places you can find the CTAs, they're posted in the Facebook discussion group, and we do send out links in our regular MWEG newsletters as well. And then if you want to share a CTA with someone, you can just share them a link to any of the places that I just described, other than Central. If they're not members of MWEG, they won't be in Central, but they can still access all the CTAs from Instagram or from the website, and you can just copy and paste also the hyperlink to the CTA landing page. So if you go open up the CTA itself, and I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, at the very top there will be the landing page for the call to action, and you can always just copy and paste that link and share that with anyone as well. Of course, the best way to share it is to be a member of MWEG and have access to Central. So you can always invite whoever you'd like to share the CTA with to become a member of MWEG, and then they will have access to the CTA through Central, just like you do. So I think with that, I am going to pass it to Emily. She's going to talk more about what CTAs look like and how to use them.
All right, thank you. So you might, if you've ever filled out a call to action before, you'll probably recognize this screenshot here that I took of a landing page. I did it in two parts so that you can see the full thing. But all calls to action that we have will exist on A landing page is what we refer to it as, that will look something like this. And walking through each of the parts, you'll see that there is the top part where it says call to action, urge our nation's leaders to protect checks and balances. That's the ask in very few words of the purpose of this call to action. And then below that, we'll see um, some context for the topic. So say you don't know anything about checks and balances, or Chrissy mentioned that we have a call to action right now on PEPFAR. Maybe you've never heard of PEPFAR. I had never heard of PEPFAR until I started working at MWIG. And so coming through and reading through the description, it will give you enough information to feel like you can confidently write to your legislator why something's important, why they should take a certain stance, or whatever your opinion is. That's the purpose of the description. You'll notice that there are some words or phrases that are hyperlinked. If you're interested in learning more beyond what's written here, you can click on the hyperlinks to take you to other pages, or you'll notice on the right-hand side, this picture, you'll see it says take action in purple, and then it says learn more. Not all calls to action have this little learn more button. Some of them do. And if you click on that, that'll give you additional information that our advocacy team has written out on the topic. So this is what it looks like. I'm sure many of you have seen this before. So I just talked through a lot of this. But like I said, title, description, additional information on the topic. And at the end of the description, there's usually the final ask in bold of what we're actually asking you to do, or we give examples of things you can write about if you don't have any ideas of what to write about. So that will be the first thing that you read through. Following reading the description and learning about the topic of the CTA, you'll be prompted to put in your street address and your zip code. This is all private and safely stored somewhere, so nobody has access to it. But the reason that you put that in is so that the system can automatically generate who your legislators are that you'll be writing to. On some CTAs, we have it directed only to your, also like your representative, or to your senators, or if it's a state specific one, to any of your state legislators. So you might see that these are different depending on who or where a certain piece of legislation is in the process. I put in my address here, so you may recognize that I live in Massachusetts. These are my senators. That's my representative. So once you put in your street address and zip code, it'll pop up like a little new, the bottom half of the landing page will look new, and it'll look like this second box here, where you'll then put in your contact information. And that's for your legislator to have access to. So if they ever want to reach back out to you, they can. And then you'll see on this right side who the letter's going to, as well as a little template for the letter that you're writing. This right-hand side is just a little note. Sometimes you might want to write different letters to different, like have a different message to one of your senators or representatives compared to another. And so you can fill out a CTA as much as you'd like to. And the way to make sure that you change the recipient is just by checking or unchecking the little box next to their picture. So if you do not want to send the letter you're about to write to a certain legislator, you just uncheck their box. But if you don't uncheck any of the boxes, which is typically what I do, I just send the same letter to everybody. It'll automatically send to whoever's pictures come up here. Okay, breaking down this next part. Below the recipients, you'll notice here in this middle box is the actual letter template of where you'll type your message in. Um, and so I'll walk through each of these boxes. So this is an email that's being sent to a staffer in their office who will pass it along to the legislator. The email subject is already written out. You'll see that up at the top, so you don't have to compose an email subject, with the exception of on our blank CTA, where there isn't like a designated topic. You can write about whatever. You will craft what you want your email subject to be. But on every other CTA, that's already crafted for you. The greeting is also automatically done. You don't need to put in your legislator's name. That will automatically be put in, as well as the end of the letter where you don't have to sign your name. It'll automatically put in your name for you. But breaking down each of these three boxes, so the format that we have for the CTAs is pretty much, I would say 95% of the time the same. In the first box, you will be introducing yourself to your legislator. I say like, hi, my name's Emily. I do such and such for work. This is this is why this topic is like relevant to me. I'll humanize myself a little bit because they probably receive a lot of emails. And so it's important to show them that you're a real person and also just draw some connection between your own life and the topic you're about to write about. So that's what that first box is. It gives some suggestions of things you can write about or include. In the second box, that is where I feel like that's kind of the meat of the email, where you will be writing specifically about the topic, the CTA topic. So we always suggest that on whatever the CTA topic is, that people use some kind of real life example, whether it's their own, whether it's something like somebody else's example, like that they know in their life. Um, just so again, it humanizes it, it makes it unique for people to read about. And we also suggest focusing on 1 to 2 key points. On some topics, I feel very passionate about things, and I'm like, I could write probably 5 pages of what I'm thinking about this topic. But we've found, and also I've heard from people who have worked in these congressional offices, that keeping them succinct and focused on a particular thing is most effective. And and if you have other topics you'd like to write about beyond 1 to 2 points, I suggest just writing another letter focused on whatever your other talking points are. Um, so those are boxes 1 and 2. Oh, okay. This is just some more tips on what they're looking for specifically and what we've heard they're looking for in the second box where you write specifically about the CTA topic or piece of legislation. Somebody said to us, and this is quoting them, "Don't be angry, don't be boring, and know what you're talking about." Um, Surely legislators receive a lot of angry emails or a lot of emails that aren't saying much. And this is why it's important to include real life examples, and to stay focused on what the topic is. So that's just reiterating what I had said on the last slide. Okay, and then finishing up this third box here, we give you the opportunity to thank your legislator for the work that they're doing. We'll talk about this more on a later slide, but something that I personally value and also have seen the value of in this work is thanking your legislator, even when you don't agree with them. Or maybe you don't have the same viewpoint as them. Um, Surely your legislators are getting a lot of requests from people, and maybe they're not always being thanked for the things that you do agree with, or maybe something separate from the topic that you're writing about. And it always feels good to be seen. And I think that that allows for you to build a better relationship with your legislator because you're not just always requesting things from them, but you also see that they're trying to do some good work. So that box gives you the opportunity to express some gratitude for their work or what they could do. I mentioned this before, but in this last box, you don't need to sign your name. That'll automatically be generated in the letter. So once you finish your last sentence, you don't need to put from or sincerely or anything. You'll see down on the bottom left that that is already included. The next note that I'll include is to always proofread your letter before hitting submit. So if you make any spelling errors or you forget to include something, once you hit the submit button, we aren't able to make any changes to your letters through like the system that they're sent through. They're just automatically sent straight to the inbox of your legislator's office. So we advise you to proofread just in case you've made a small mistake. And this is just a little before you click the send button. You do have the option to preview your letter. You'll notice there's this big purple preview button on the left-hand side. If you click on it, you'll see what your letter will look like in the viewpoint of being the receiver of it. And then once you click on that, you'll see these two buttons, either send or go back. Sending it will send the email, it'll complete it. And if you hit go back, it'll take you back to this middle page here, where you can continue to edit your letter if you need to. As I mentioned before, proofread because we can't make any edits to them. And then once it's proofread and you feel ready to go ahead and click send and know that you just did a wonderful job advocating. Okay. The next thing that I'll mention is there is more that you can do after you write a letter. Looking at the right-hand box where it talks about making a phone call on a CTA on the landing page. Let me see if I can pull it up in a screenshot, what it will look like. Okay. So if you see in this middle box here, how it has like the mail icon, and then there's the Twitter icon, Facebook, and then the phone call. If you click on this little phone icon here, it'll take you to a page that looks like, okay, this is it broken down, but it'll have the recipient that you want to, like phone, and it'll give their phone number. And there's also like a little script that you can follow if you don't necessarily know what you want to say to your legislators. So that's listed every time. And then once you've called them, you can just click this little box here and it'll do a little check mark saying that you've called them. So we always encourage you to call and follow up your emails with a phone call. The other thing that you can consider after writing a letter is turning that letter into an op-ed or to an LTE, which is a shorter op-ed, and it stands for letter to the editor. So you've already written a letter, maybe it's 100 words, 200 words, however long. If you feel really passionate or strongly about a topic and you want it to be more broadly seen, MWEG's Op-Ed Lab is a great opportunity to do more with something that you've already written. They're super helpful throughout the whole process. And if you know nothing about writing and publishing, they will tell you everything you need to know. So That's just a plug for doing things beyond sending an email. And go back to Christy to talk about the blank CTA that we have.
Thanks, Emily. So our blank CTA is kind of always active. You can find it in all the usual places, and sometimes we repost it. So it looks a lot like the CTA forms for our topic CTAs that have a lot more content in them, but as you will see, it's just kind of more open-ended. So you can use it anytime if you want to talk to your legislators about any issue that we're not working on or that's particularly important to you. You can still use our CTA form and you can write anything you'd like to talk about. So you can find it in the central call to action space, just like our regular CTAs, and on our website. If you can't find it, you can always bump one of us too. Shoot us a message. We can pull it for you. But the links are out there. And because it's open-ended, you get to select which of your legislators you want to receive the message by checking and unchecking boxes, just like Emily showed you. If it is only relating to something that like the House is working on, go ahead and uncheck your senators. Just like know where the piece of legislation is and know what's happening with it and send it to the right people. And that helps you look more competent. And if you have an ongoing writing relationship with a lot of these people and they might know who you are, this is especially true on the state level, but that could be true on the federal level as well. You want to look like you know what you're doing and what you're talking about, so you want to make sure that you are sending it to the correct people. You're going to need to change the email subject line. So unlike our other CTAs where the subject line is provided for you, as Emily mentioned, you're going to need to put in a subject line. If you're talking about a specific bill that's working through the process, you're going to want to put the name of the bill in that subject line and the bill number if you have it. Anything in the subject line that shows the recipient what it's relating to is going to be very helpful to the offices, and it's going to get logged properly, and the correct people, staff members, are going to see it. So when you put in your own subject line, make sure that it's really clear what you're contacting them about. And just like other CTAs, you're going to want to keep it focused, share a personal story, follow up with a phone call, keep it to one topic. You don't want to use the CTA to just, list a litany of things, grievances, all the grievances you have with the person and send it off there. That's not helpful. You can just do that in a Google Doc for yourself and then not send it if you just need to get it all out. But the CTA form is going to be a lot more effective if you pick a topic, especially when related to current legislation, and then your CTA is succinct and related to only that topic and really stays on point. So that's the best way to use the blank CTA. Another thing too is we have found it helpful when people are submitting the blank CTA on various topics, that kind of flags those topics for us. So we get data on the back end about what people are mentioning in blank CTAs. And if a lot of people, turns out, really care about an issue that we hadn't it wasn't really on our radar, or we hadn't had the bandwidth to engage with it till now, that flags it for us and say, oh, our members are really interested in this. We should look more at this issue and see what kind of content we can build around this issue. So using the blank CTA is really helpful to inform us what your members are interested in as well. We also, as I mentioned earlier, do gratitude CTAs, and you can use the blank CTA to do a gratitude CTA if we haven't set one up for that purpose. But I can't tell you how many times we have been in legislator meetings and people are so touched that we bothered to thank them, because legislators get a lot of disagreement and they get a lot of really just kind of boring, sanitized technical stuff, but they don't get a lot of thanks. And so anytime we can thank a legislator for their service or for their vote or for engaging in a certain way, even if they didn't vote the way we wanted to, if they were, worked across the aisle, or if they extended grace to a colleague, or there are a variety of things, right? That we could find to thank our legislators for, and those go a really long way in building a relationship. So the goal of our advocacy work is to build relationships of trust, and it just goes a really, really long way to thank these people for the work that they do, and they don't get a lot of things, and they're usually delighted. And especially on the state level, where you have kind of more personal relationships with your legislators, they can be like really touched. And we've had people be like, "Oh, you guys weren't even on our radar," but then like one of your members noticed I did this thing and thanked me, and I was so blown away by that, because people just don't do that. And now we have a building relationship with that legislator, and a really good foundation to build on. So you can use like I said, you can use the blank CTA to reach out and thank your legislators. Sometimes we will do targeted thank you CTAs, and if your legislator is someone we're trying to target for gratitude CTA, we'll usually email that out again through our CTA software and have a form set up for you to thank you. So just a plug for those gratitude CTAs, they are really important. They do go really far in terms of building relationships, and it also shows our legislators we're paying attention, right, to what they're doing. Shows them we know what we're talking about. So they're a really important part of our advocacy, and also of our relationship building.
Perfect. Thank you. And the last thing, in case you don't know what TLDR stands for, it's too long, didn't read, or we could do TLDL, too long, didn't listen. So you might be thinking, Emily, Christy, that was a great presentation, but it went a little over my head. But now I'm listening because I know you're on the last slide. So these are the big things to take away. The first, when you're writing your letters, don't forget to be personal. Share a real life example from your own life or from the experience of somebody else that you know. Be succinct in your letters. Keep your emails brief and focused on 1 to 2 topics. If you have more than 1 to 2 topics floating around in your head, just write another email about them. The third is to express gratitude. Christy just touched on the importance of that, and how that builds relationships and is a good foundation to let our legislators know that we're aware of the work that they're doing. The fourth is to check or uncheck the boxes of who your recipients are. So if you don't want your email to go to certain legislators, or if you want a special, like create a more specific version of an email, just uncheck the little blue box next to their name. The fifth one is to proofread your email. We can't make any edits to your emails because they are automatically sent straight to the inbox of the office, your legislator's office, when you hit send. And then the last thing is to consider expanding the email, the letter that you've just written, into an opinion piece, or a letter to the editor. And to that, I'll also add calling your office once you've written an email. And that's all we have for you today. So thank you. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions they want to ask Emily and Christy while we have them? I saw one question in the chat was about where it comes from and what it looks like. So like they said, it'll look like it's coming from your email address through the system, which is why it's important to put your email address in there. Also, when I've used the CTA tools, that because it's come back to that, the response that I get from my representatives just comes right back to me. So, and sometimes it's a form letter from them, and sometimes they'll go into a little more detail depending on what my letter says, obviously. Does anybody else have questions or experiences using the CTAs? All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, thank you, Christy. Thank you, Emily, for sharing this information with us. This recording will be posted in Central in the Grow videos that you can find on the left-hand side. If you're on your computer, you can just scroll down the bottom and there's videos. And next week we have an update from our co-executive directors, Jen Thomas and Emma Petty Adams. So hopefully you'll be back and join us next week if you have if you're interested to know what MY's been up to over the last quarter or so. We'll see you next time.